This is the cab of the most beautiful steam locomotive ever built. And from here, a two-person crew drove it fast along the California coast, hauling the premier passenger train of the American West. The engineer ran a locomotive built for speed, 80-inch driving wheels, a high-pressure boiler, and the smoothest high-speed running steam could offer. And the fireman did something different from most steam crews in this series. He fired the locomotive not with coal, but with oil. Together, they ran the Daylight, the streamlined passenger train that made the run between Los Angeles and San Francisco one of the most celebrated journeys in America. This is what it was like to operate high-speed passenger steam, the beautiful counterpoint to the brute power of the big boy. Steam driven for speed and beauty. The GS-4 was a two-person locomotive, an engineer and a fireman like the other large steam locomotives in this series, but its job was distinct. Where the big boy crew fought mountains with freight, the GS-4 crew ran fast with passengers along the coast. The GS-4 was built for speed. Its 80-inch driving wheels, high-pressure boiler, and streamlined form were all engineered to run fast and smooth. Operating it meant exploiting that speed, holding fast schedules while delivering the comfortable, refined ride that premium passengers expected. And the GS-4 was oil-fired, which changed the fireman's job fundamentally. There was no shoveling. Instead, the fireman controlled the flow of oil to the burner, a different craft, but no less demanding. What it was like to drive a GS-4 is the story of operating steam at high speed for the comfort of passengers. A refined, fast, beautiful counterpoint to the raw freight power elsewhere in this series. The engineer's controls followed the standard steam layout, the throttle regulating steam, the reverser controlling the valve gear cutoff, the brake stand managing the train. But the GS-4's job placed the emphasis on high-speed running rather than heavy hauling. With its 80-inch drivers, the GS-4 was built to run fast. The engineer accelerated the train to high speed and then held it there, managing the throttle and cutoff to sustain velocity efficiently. The large drivers meant the locomotive ran comfortably at high speed, with the running gear moving at a manageable pace. As speed built, the engineer shortened the cutoff with the reverser, admitting steam for a smaller fraction of each piston stroke and letting the trapped steam expand. This conserved steam while maintaining speed, essential for running the long, fast Daylight schedule without exhausting the boiler. Accelerating a heavy streamlined passenger train to high speed demanded skill. The engineer applied power smoothly to avoid slipping the drivers, building speed steadily. Once at speed, the job became one of precise, efficient management, holding the schedule, running smoothly, and keeping the ride comfortable for hundreds of passengers behind. The brake work was critical on a high-speed passenger locomotive. Bringing the Daylight down from high speed for station stops or speed restrictions required anticipation and careful, staged brake applications. A rough stop would be felt by every passenger. The engineer managed the air brakes to stop smoothly and precisely, station after station. The GS-4's job was to make the Daylight one of the finest passenger experiences in America, fast, smooth, and reliable. The engineer's skill in running the locomotive at speed while keeping the ride comfortable was central to that experience. Passengers rode the Daylight for the journey itself, and the engineer's hand on the throttle shaped that journey. But the engineer's high-speed running depended entirely on the fireman keeping the boiler fed. And on the GS-4, that meant mastering fire without a shovel. The GS-4's firemen did not shovel coal. The Southern Pacific fired most of its locomotives with oil, and the GS-4 burned heavy fuel oil sprayed into the firebox through a burner. The firemen controlled the fire by regulating the flow of oil and the air that mixed with it. Oil firing was a fundamentally different craft than coal firing. Instead of building and maintaining a bed of burning coal across the grate, the firemen managed a burner flame. Turning up the oil flow increased the heat, reducing it lowered the heat. The fire responded quickly and could be controlled with precision. The firemen balanced the oil flow against the locomotive's steam demand, watching the steam pressure gauge and the water glass. During high-speed running, the boiler consumed steam rapidly, and the firemen had to keep the fire hot enough to maintain the 300-pound boiler pressure the GS-4 needed. The water management carried the same critical stakes as on any steam locomotive. The firemen fed water through the injectors to keep the boiler level correct, protecting the crown sheet from being exposed to the fire. Oil firing changed how the fire was managed, but the fundamental physics of the boiler and its dangers remained the same. Oil firing had real advantages for high-speed passenger work. The fire responded quickly to changing demands, making it easier to match the engineer's throttle. There was no ash, no clinker, and no continuous shoveling, which reduced the fireman's physical labor and kept the locomotive cleaner. For a premium passenger service, these were meaningful benefits. But oil firing was not effortless. The fireman had to read the fire, anticipate the engineer's demands, and keep the boiler exactly balanced at high speed. Too little fire and the locomotive would lose pressure and slow, too much and fuel was wasted and the fire could smoke. The oil-firing fireman practiced a precise, attentive craft, different from coal firing, but demanding in its own way. The engineer and fireman ran the GS-4 as a coordinated team, at speed, along one of the most beautiful routes in America. And the setting made the job unlike any other. The coordination between engineer and fireman on the GS-4 followed the fundamental steam partnership tuned for high-speed passenger work. The engineer managed the speed and the schedule. The fireman kept the boiler fed to sustain that speed. At high velocity, the two had to stay in constant sync, the fireman anticipating the engineer's power demands. And the route was extraordinary. The Coast Daylight ran along the Pacific between Los Angeles and San Francisco, through some of the most scenic territory in America. The crew ran the GS-4 along the ocean, through the coastal hills, holding a fast schedule on a route that passengers rode specifically for its beauty. Running a fast passenger train through this territory demanded skill and attention. The route had its speed restrictions, its curves, and its grades, and the crew had to run the schedule while respecting them, accelerating where they could, braking where they must, keeping the fast trains safe and smooth. The Daylight was the Southern Pacific's premier train, and the GS-4 crews who ran it were among the railroad's best. Operating the most beautiful locomotive in America on its most celebrated route was a position of skill and prestige. The crews took pride in delivering the Daylight experience, fast, smooth, and reliable day after day. The engineers and firemen who ran the GS-4 mastered high-speed passenger steam operation with oil firing, a specific combination of skills. Running fast, firing with oil, holding a demanding schedule, and delivering a premium ride all at once required experience and judgment that came only with time on the locomotive. For a little over a decade, the GS-4 crews made the Daylight one of the defining passenger experiences in the American West. The combination of the beautiful locomotive, the scenic route, and the skilled operation created a train that people remembered for a lifetime. And that made the GS-4 crews part of one of the great chapters of American passenger railroading. The GS-4 era ended as diesels replaced steam on the Southern Pacific through the 1950s. The crews who ran high-speed passenger steam along the coast moved to diesels, and the specific craft of driving a fast, oil-fired streamlined steam locomotive faded into history. Most GS-4s were scrapped, but number 4449 survived, preserved, then famously restored to pull the American Freedom Train in 1975, and operating as an excursion locomotive ever since. When 449 runs today, a modern crew operates the most beautiful steam locomotive ever built. They run it at speed, they fire it with oil, and they experience the high-speed passenger steam craft that its original crews practiced along the coast. The GS-4 rewards them with the same fast, smooth running it always offered. Driving a GS-4 was the experience of operating steam at its most refined and fast, the counterpoint to the big boy. Where the big boy crew fought a mountain with brute power, the GS-4 crew ran fast and smooth with passengers, delivering an experience of beauty and speed. Both crews ran steam locomotives. Both managed a boiler, a throttle, and a fire. But they practiced opposite expressions of the craft, one built for maximum power, the other for maximum speed and grace. The GS-4 crew ran the beautiful side of steam. Driving a GS-4 Daylight was the experience of operating high-speed passenger steam along the California coast. An oil-fired, streamlined, beautiful locomotive, run fast and smooth by a skilled two-person crew. And when 449 runs today, that experience lives on, at speed, in the most beautiful locomotive ever built. Driving the Southern Pacific GS-4 Daylight was the experience of operating high-speed passenger steam, an oil-fired, streamlined locomotive run fast and smooth along the California coast. It is the beautiful, speed-focused counterpoint to the big boy's brute freight power. This is part 7 of our From the Cab series. The earlier videos covered the big boy, the GG1, the F unit, the K4, the Class J, and the GP38-2 and SD40-2. Our companion What's Under the Hood series covers the engineering, all linked in the description. Next, our final video in this series covers driving the Pennsylvania Railroad T1 duplex, the most difficult and controversial steam locomotive to operate ever built, and the cautionary counterpoint to the beloved K4. Subscribe so you do not miss it. There are more locomotives to examine and more cabs to climb into. We will keep telling the story of how the machines were actually operated by the people who worked them.